Hi, this is Jeff Sparks for the Grace and Truth Bible Study. One of the things we've been looking at recently is the various principles of how to interpret and understand the Bible for ourselves. On the screen, you see the fourth principle we've been looking at in our Bible study series this winter, and it's read the Bible verses in context. Now, this can mean two different things. The first thing it means is let the Bible interpret itself. That is to say, the Bible verses, like the one highlighted behind the text here, in fact, has a context. There's verses before it, there's verses after it, and we want to make sure we're reading the Bible in that textual context. But another thing this would mean, and what we'll be talking about today, is how to read the Bible verses in their historical context. So today we're going to have fun with a sample application of this principle taken right out of Matthew 18. And specifically in Matthew 18, starting with verse 21, we're going to look at the parable of the unforgiving servant. Now, you may remember this. This is when Peter comes up to Jesus and says, "Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" Peter asks Jesus. So Jesus says, "Well, I tell you, I do not say 7 times, but 77 times." Now, if you pause a moment and just think realistically, I can imagine Peter, with his temperament, starting to count on his fingers and do the math. Jesus shaking his head and going, No. You're not getting what I'm talking about. And he now turns to Peter and the group around Peter and says, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants." So when Peter asks his question and Jesus gives the answer 70 times 7, so I can imagine Jesus is watching Peter starting to do the math, starting to add up or multiply how many times is 70. And I think it's at this point, if we use a little holy imagination, we can picture Jesus shaking his head going, no, stop. What I want to tell you about forgiveness is something about the kingdom of heaven itself, in fact. And so in verse 23, Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven, in this context, may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his servants." And verse 24, "When he began to settle, one was brought to him who owed him 10,000 talents. Pause there a moment. I don't know about you. I have, throughout my life, read this parable, and 10,000 talents was an abstract concept. I mean, did it mean $10,000? It's still a lot of money. Maybe the monetary exchange back then was different than ours today, so maybe it was 100,000. And is it money? Is it weight? And what is 10,000? And I'm glad I checked, because once I found out, it changed everything about how I read this parable. So on the screen, you'll see the sample application of Matthew 18, and we're going to move to the next slide. And first, let me say that as of this recording, about November 15th, 2015, one of these really amazing bars of pure gold, 1,000 grams of pure gold, is $35,000 in value in today's market. 1 talent equals 45.45 bars of gold. And if you had 45.5 bars of gold, that is 1 talent, you'd be a millionaire. Today's market value for 45.5 bars of gold is $1.5 million. Now that would be nice, right? So 1 talent, but what about 10,000 talents? Now 10,000 talents, if we do the math, is 455,400 bars of that extra pure fine gold. If this man owed 10,000 talents, he basically owed his king the modern equivalent of $15.9 billion. So that's how much this man owed his king. It's an unthinkable amount. But in today's marketplace, that's a little more than the 2015 debt of the entire nation of Guatemala. So think about that. All of the millions and millions of people that live in Guatemala, this is how much their country owes. But Jesus is not telling this parable in modern 2015 in our context. He's telling it in his own context. So that's an important thing we want to draw out of this parable. $15.9 billion was basically the entire economic value of the known world. That is to say, of the entire Roman Empire. Take a moment to get your head around that. Jesus is telling Peter, and by extension the crowd around Peter, that this man came to a king and owed him the known economic value of the world. Well, and what Jesus is telling Peter is if you were to equate sin with the value of $1, is the entire value of all money in the world. I hope this helps you understand a little bit better that if you take some time when you run across an item of Scripture or something in the Bible text you're reading, and you don't really know what it means, go ahead and take a moment, take some time to do some research. Begin to understand first what it meant back in the day in which it was given, that original context, and then when you see the impact it had in that world, it is so much easier now to make that extension to ours, to your life, to mine, and to the message of the gospel as it will affect us today. So the next time you're reading the Bible and you come across a passage that has some information you're not exactly sure what it means or how that applies to your life, take some time to look at that text in its historical context and take some time to research what it would mean to the people in that day and then apply that to your life today. My name is Jeff Sparks, and I thank you for taking some time to watch this video from our class, the Grace and Truth Bible Study.